Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the showdown between the Ogre Kingdoms and Slaanesh. It's going to be a Firebelly facing off against an Exalted Keeper of Secrets. Certainly quite fun, being able to bring a hero as your lord. And really, the Firebelly might as well be a lord. It's very, very powerful in combat. It has nice abilities, really good spells, of course, having Burning Head and Fireball. Great choice against Slaanesh for sure, because the entire Slaanesh armor is really lightly armored. So things like Fireball as well as the Burning Head should be pretty darn strong here. Now, for the starting army, it's going to be basic Ogre Bulls, and like I said, you don't need anything terribly fancy against Slaanesh. The main thing is keeping your formations, staying together, not getting surrounded. That's the best way to deal with Slaanesh, because they have 100 speed. If you overextend onto other objectives, or try and play like objectives in a very spread out way, Slaanesh is going to annihilate you. But if you stay together, you have a much better chance. Now, front battle line is going to be some Iron Guts backed up by some Ogre Bulls. So we have a pretty formidable front line. The Iron Guts I was a little bit on the fence about, but I was like, you know what? Let's bring a little bit of armor to have some sustainability, because the Slaanesh anti-large cavalry do not have armor piercing. So the idea was maybe one Iron Gut would give me that kind of tankiness I needed. We got two Noblars here, as well as a Firebelly. Firebelly does have Burning Head, as well as the Fireball, I think, and then his Explosion spell, which is like an AoE explosion. And we do have the very OP Iron Blaster here. Now, Iron Blasters are probably the best unit on the roster in tandem with the Gorgers. This thing just hits so hard, it's mobile. It's basically like 4 or 5 cannons in one piece. Now, on the far side, we do have a Vanguard. So we have some Noblars and some Gorgers. The idea was to kind of bait Slaanesh over here and then maybe jack the back objective, try and get an ambush or something. I didn't really know what I had in mind for it, but just kind of wanted to try some crazy stuff. Now, for the forces of the Dark Prince, it is going to be an Exalted Keeper of Secrets with Slaanesh magic. It's going to be a couple Marauders with Spears, very, very cost-effective against my big boys, and Harpies up in the sky, not Harpies but Furies, backed up by a million Hellstriders as well as the Chaos Furies. Now, for the Slaanesh magic, taking a look here at what they bring to the table, they do have the Snare, so it's Seductive Glory. It rampages the unit and basically lowers their melee defense. They have the Ballet of Blows, which I think is an active ability. Yeah, and then the Lash of Slaanesh, oh, is that actually an ability? Oh, it is, wow, Seductive Glory is actually an ability on the Keeper. Okay, got that wrong. And then this one makes them do more damage the longer they're fighting here. Lash of Slaanesh just kind of whips the infantry units. Not super good, but okay at clearing out Noblars. And then we do have the Phantasm spell, which basically snares everything in a big radius. So yeah, Slaanesh brings a lot to the table. In terms of their army passive ability, they actually get their army points built up if they break the leadership of units. So against Ogres, they pretty much auto-fill it, because Noblars will break in like a couple seconds. Now, both of us kind of jockeying for the objectives. I'm just kind of chilling here, and you'll notice how against Slaanesh, if I went right up the middle of the map, I'm going to get surrounded and beaten down by the devastating flanker, but you always want to take angles against Slaanesh where basically you're waddling and taking a very, very safe approach here. I think that's one of the better game plans. Now back here, we do have Chaos Furies. I don't think they've discovered my Goon Squat yet, but I think they discover it right now and decide to attack, but we're okay to fight this. We have Gorgers here. Gorgers, of course, were stock, so my opponent didn't see them. And also the old Saber Tusks are going to be jumping all over the Slaanesh units. And that's the one thing. Like, I've heard a lot of critiques about people saying, like, oh, spawn camping is going to be a thing. But typically, if you spawn camp someone, they have all the advantages against you. Not only will their army be there, but they can summon reinforcements immediately, and your reinforcements have to come across. So typically, spawn camping isn't a good tactic. Now, with Slaanesh, of course, if somebody makes a mistake like I did of leaving, like, part of my army here and the rest of it over here, yeah, of course, you can punish them, but they can just spawn over here or over here, and it's really not going to be too big of a deal, in my opinion. Unless you're just playing like someone who's way worse than you, right? Like somebody who's far less experienced, yeah, you could probably spawn camp them. Like, I've played people who are campaign players in domination mode, campaign creators, and you just squash them and spawn, and you can potentially spawn camp them because of the skill differential, and that's just because they lose the fighting so badly. Their army compositions are a little bit ineffective. You guys get the picture here. Nonetheless, this fight goes pretty well for us. The Ogres are very resilient with the Gorgers, and of course, Saber Tusks are excellent. They have 70 weapon strength, and they hit super hard against light targets here. So we do punish these Slaaneshi cavalry pretty badly. Now, they're going to be moving up here. In the meantime, the Iron Blaster shooting up into the hill, going after the old Marauders of Slaanesh. And in the backfield engagement, the Big Keeper is here, but it's a little bit too late. This thing would have been quite useful. It does have anti-large, so it's an excellent tool against Saber Tusks, Gorgers, all these units essentially. But the last of these Slaaneshi Hellstriders, which are doing okay considering, are probably going to be going down here. So in terms of value, we have certainly outvalued them quite a bit. But once again, just being very cautious not to get surrounded, moving up the Iron Blasters as well as the Iron Guts and the Firebelly, just trying to secure the objectives. I felt like the trading was good enough. Like, I was up by maybe 2,000 value on trading that I could just take the objectives and be fine. Now, normally against Slaanesh, it's very risky because with bonus points, they can capitalize pretty much faster than anyone. And the dreaded Firebelly is here, one of the cooler looking models on the roster. So the Firebelly laying down his stick, looking super cool. I mean, this guy is just such an awesome character. Going to be slapping his belly, having a good old time. I cannot blame him. It's a good life being an ogre, eating like the heathen kings of old. I can relate. I definitely eat a lot of cheeseburgers. So now Slaanesh is going to be jumping down in the middle objective. I'm slightly out of position with some of my units, so they might be able to get a relatively cost-effective alpha strike considering how many spears they have. So here comes the Ogre Bulls, and they do get a nice charge into the spears, but the spears will trade very cost-effectively. We do also use the SEM cannon, because the Iron Blaster is actually a pretty good anti-infantry piece too. It has anti-infantry and armor piercing. We're able to get a nice charge there, and you can see the Marauders of Slaanesh are getting hammered, but now Slaanesh is getting the devastating flanker with anti-large cavalry. So, you know, a ton of anti-large armor piercings coming in, the Exalted Keeper of Secrets is jumping in, and I could just straight up like lose my fire belly. This thing has amazing combat prowess, and I have to be very careful as more and more Slaanesh rounds come in. A big burning head. All the Warhammer 2 players are afraid of it, but it's honestly not as good as Pendulum, and I did kind of miss the cast there. It was a little bit hard to see in kind of the fury of combat which units were these Slaanesh units and which ones are mine, but Slaanesh is actually taking the middle objective here. They do have some Gorgers and Hounds and Noblars and different things coming in, but overall this fight here is probably going pretty good for Slaanesh. My Fire Belly is just trying to live, but the Iron Guts are holding on like champs, but a huge debuff going down. The Phantasm spell snares me, lowers my leadership, and you can see the Noblars are now breaking, getting terrified. Some of the Ogres are shaken as well. Seductive Glory lowers my melee defense here, and the Slaanesh army summoning in some Fiends, really able to get some brutal damage against the Ogre Kingdom's units. And the Fire Belly, man, he's trying to keep the boys together, maybe enticing them with some good treats or something. But this fight looking very dicey, and as such, the big man's going to be trying to escape. Obviously, I want to have that magic for the rest of the game. The Iron Blaster's still in here fighting, but most of my troops have buckled at this point. But I am able to bounce back with the Saber Tusks and jump on top of the Slaaneshi Marauders, which I believe are spears. But the Gorgers, you know, trade super well. I found that Gorgers, even against things that counter them, are just very tough to kill. So Firebelly Man was able to escape the wrath of the Exalted Keeper. He does have the Ballet of Blows, so getting better and better combat stats as the grinding does commence. And do I have the Secret Agent Squad going for the top objective? No, I don't, but I am up on points by a little bit. The fighting continues to rumble here in the middle as we do break the Marauders, but Slaanesh able to get a pretty favorable fight, getting that nice surround I was talking about. And, you know, I let myself get surrounded. My opponent really capitalized here incredibly well. So the Exalted Keeper of Secrets also beating up my Iron Blaster. I have to tell you, this was a rough one. I really felt like I was in a super commanding position in this game in the beginning when I was able to get like great value back here and like out-trade by like 2,000 resources, but Slaanesh's mobility and that big surround 100% got them back in the game. Unfortunately, we can't see the metric right now, but in terms of the balance of power, it's like dead even at this point. Like, we're very close in terms of actual overall value. Now, in the backfield, though, I decided to take more of a defensive posture considering Slaanesh's aggression, so I summoned in some Lead Belchers here. We are going to be ripping shots into the Exalted Keeper. We're sending Gorgers in to kind of be sacrificed, and you'll notice I'm pulling the Saber Tusks back to try and protect back here and make sure that nothing penetrates on top of my shooting. Slaanesh is very squishy, right? Fireball coming in from the old Fire Belly, and he has some really cool attack animations just swinging around his giant stick here. But Saber Tusks doing the work of the gods. Big Slaaneshi snare going down, lowering my leadership and melee defense, but a Burning Head will also be tickling the pickle of many of these units, so certainly feeling pretty good for old Fire Belly there. But the middle objective is now being taken by Slaanesh. They have more weight on the objective, they have infantry moving on, and I do have a couple Gorgers which carry a lot of weight with the Noblars, but when the Noblars get broken off that back objective, things are going to be getting quite spicy for sure. But Slaanesh is really threatening to take the back objective right now, but man, oh man, Lead Belchers are awesome. Ripping some big fat ones here into the Lord. So shooting from downtown, we got a couple Noblars kind of screening there. Saber Tusks, I believe these ones are broken. Yeah, they're broken and running, so nothing terribly tactical there in that play. Noblar Trappers, though, doing the job, keeping back the Marauders of Slaanesh while we get the Lord even lower and lower. And in response to my shooting, my opponent's going to be summoning in a couple Chaos Furies. Also, they do have some old Marauders of Slaanesh up on the high ground objective, so I pull back. These are the Hellscourge ones. They're pretty good at clearing out infantry. They have, high stats and, really will massacre Noblars. So I'm trying to pull back until I can get some reinforcements there to then jump back on the objective. Up here, no Secret Agent play coming quite yet. I think at some point in the game there is a little bit of Secret Agent action that's going to be going on there. And yes, Slaanesh is pushing me off the objective, but it's a very bloody fight. Both sides are taking heavy casualties. The old Firebelly's still going like a champ, though. Dude, he's such a cool looking character. I think Firebellies are one of my favorite units in the Ogre roster. They have Lure of Fire, they have a breath attack, so much like a miniature dragon breath, and they also have an explosion, and it's all like anti-light, so against Slaanesh it's pretty effective, but Fiends are pushing back, man. Getting very dicey. My Noblars are broken, of course, so they are suffering from the soporific musk, which is going to be lowering their melee defense and melee attack, and they're just going to be running for the hills. Fiends, of course, do have the devastating flanker, very quick, can certainly chase us down. Now, I finally summoned my Lord. So my Lord is actually a very cheap one. It's just the Tyrant. He's really good because he heals in combat, and it's just durable, right? So summoning him in a little bit later on when I bring my hero as my first Lord just to make sure I get magic, I think is pretty good. And he will have the sword icon, unfortunately, but he's trying his best. So the old Fiends of Slaanesh trying to hunt down my Lead Belchers, being given some very heavy attack animations. Up on the high ground, I did summon in some Gorgers, as well as Saber Tusks, to make sure Slaanesh doesn't get this objective here. And the boys are doing good. We're able to get a nice pick, and those Marauders will be sent back to the avoid from whence they came. And now it is time for the ultimate Ogre Kingdom scheme as Slaanesh starts to really punish me here. I mean, this objective is being threatened, although we should be able to stabilize. They have the middle, they have the top objective, and I am arranging my Noblar Trappers up here. And I'm going to be getting a 3v1 to try and jack that objective. I think that's going to be super important. And summoning in Saber Tusks to peel off the Chaos Furies here is kind of my game plan. Firebelly's getting a little bit low, but it's all good, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a backup. We have the old Tyrant. Hopefully the Tyrant will be able to fight these guys back, and he does take down one of those fiends right there with this big Mike Tyson left hook right there. Although Mike Tyson was a right, yeah, he had the right hook, I think, although I could be wrong. Slaanesh Spears moving in. Their armor is a little bit sundered right now. I'm not sure by what. I think one of my units here has armor sundering, but yeah, feels good. Fight continues on. We take the high ground objective. Slaanesh has the middle. And right now, the Slaanesh player probably feels like they're in good shape. My army has been pushed back for the most part. The tug of war is not going well for the Ogre Kingdoms, but now I think it's going to be changing momentum. We kill the Fiends. We kill the Marauders. We have, Ogre Bulls moving up to support. And we're going to be moving on that middle objective, like, very aggressively. But the best part about this is kind of the Feign that's going to be coming in behind it, because the Noblar Trappers will be going for objective number 3 here. So we have these sneaky boys in the bushes and should be able to jump on there and do their thing. While Slaanesh is going to be summoning in more Hellstriders and Furies and really trying to re-rally on that middle objective. Now, losing the big Lord was pretty big. The fact that we did kill the Keeper earlier with our Leadbelcher shooting was quite strong. If that thing was still running around the battlefield with 80 speed, I could be in danger. My lead is about to be surpassed, but we're going to be moving on to the middle, trying to get that while the Fiends move up. I don't think he's actually aware. Oh, I think he can see the Noblar Trappers now. Yeah, I think that's why the Fiends and Mobility is going up there. These are Seekers, which of course are armor piercing, and the Fiends of Slaanesh are no joke either. They will clear out those Noblars, but the best part about this is we have more capture weight because we just have a ton of infantry against his one unit, and that's what makes Ogres really good. Noblars, cost like 2 to 450 gold, and they can like outcap expensive infantry. But it's summoning away a lot of stuff, right? So instead of going for the middle where the epicenter of fighting is, many of these units are moving up to secure the high ground objective, which is certainly not a bad idea by any stretch of the imagination. The Furies of Slaanesh do have armor piercing too. Might be able to actually finish off that Iron Blaster, I'm not sure here, but middle objective is controlled by the forces of the Dark Prince, but not for long. Ogres do have the capture weight of infantry. So Ogre Bulls and things like that, I'm sure a lot of people were kind of wondering, they capture as much as infantry units. It'd be kind of lame if they didn't, because then they would only have Noblars. And Noblars, though they're good at capturing, have terrible leadership. So they can be like buckled off objectives really quickly, and I think Ogres would be pretty bad if that was the case. But I'm glad that's kind of the way it works. So Noblar Trappers and Gorgers moving in, going to be trying to save these old lead belchers, which I would imagine probably got like close to 2,000 value. But we do resecure the middle. Now, the score is very, very even. Slaanesh is just ahead of us, but now that we've resecured the 2 objectives and also threatened this backfield objective, and we just ran away with these Noblars, so if these guys aren't chased down and dealt with, they can come back and threaten that objective once again. Now, Slaanesh's army looking pretty thin for sure. We can do a little bit of fast forwarding. Slaanesh essentially is going to be remustering one last like big pushing force, but the Ogre durability here is really showing. We have the Tyrant, who of course heals in combat, which is really nice. The Firebelly still holding on. Fury's moving up here, but again, the stalking prowess of the Ogre Kingdoms is huge because he did not know the Gorgers were here. Gorgers are just lawnmowers. 100 weapon strength, 45 melee attack, they heal in combat, should be able to make very quick work of those Furies, no problem, especially with a little bit of Noblar support. So where will Slaanesh go for its final Alpha Strike? We do have their cavalry coming back in. At this point, it might be a little bit tough. They might have to triple cap me. It looks like they will. Slaanesh going to be moving in with a bunch of cavalry up from the high ground, swarming into the middle for one last fight for the fate of Middle-earth, but the Ogre Kingdom stand firm. The Gorgers and the Tyrant meet the charging Slaaneshi forces head on. And the Firebelly in the back just cackling. And they'll be eating Slaanesh tonight, which, a little bit of a questionable thing for sure, but hey, it should be fun for all sides. All right, so Ogre Kingdom's victory versus Slaanesh. Firebelly, 1,300 value. Let's see who else did really good. Gorgers did great. Ogre Bills were fine. These things are just always good. Iron Blasters are like the best unit on the roster. And yeah, the Gorgers did fine. The Saber Tucks performed pretty well. I think the big thing was, of course, 2,300 on the Lead Belchers. Like, the Slaaneshi Lord getting sniped was the biggest thing. I think it maybe should have ran away. Also, that engagement in the beginning where we caught a lot of the Slaanesh army in our backfield, I think that was a huge deciding factor as well. A couple of variables there that were the big turning tide, but it was a close game. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. That is the Ogre Kingdoms versus Slaanesh. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more content soon. Take care of yourselves, and can't wait for this to launch so we can start doing some tournaments. Cheers.